white-backed vulture is. Are you talking about its wingspan, or are we talking about its weight, or just how tall it is? Because if we're talking about weight, this vulture will weigh between 4 and 6.5 kilograms, so somewhere around there. It's quite a heavy bird. And then in terms of its wingspan, it's got a wingspan of about 2 meters, so just over 2 meters, which is really very, very large. That's close to 8 feet, so quite a big wingspan. And then its height, it's about 100 centimeters tall. So let's just give you an idea. It's a meter tall and a just over 2 meter wingspan. Ethan, you're wondering why its body is so much bigger than its head. Well, it's looking bigger than normal anyway because it's a bit fluffed up this morning. It's been a cold start to the morning. The air is a little bit cooler this morning as we start going into winter. And so it's fluffed up to try and trap air against the body and try and stay nice and warm. But also it's because, and this is an interesting part of the vulture, is the vulture eats meat from rotten carcasses. So if it had feathers all over its head, which would make its head look as though it's like an eagle and look a little bit more normal, then it would have a problem because it would put its head inside this rotten carcass and there would be blood and maggots and meat that would go all over its head, and that would make the feathers go into bad condition, and potentially that animal could get disease and infection from that and die. So they have a featherless head so that when they put their head into the carcass, none of that actually happens, and it's much easier to clean, and that's why it's like that. So it looks a little bit strange, doesn't it? But you can see that it has a very good function in keeping the bird healthy and clean. It's also the vultures, because of the heights that they fly, they've got very big, powerful wings, and so they need this big bulk in the chest area and big muscular structures to be able to flap those wings and get that bulk up into the air. So that's also why there's a bit of a disparity between the head and the wings. Now, Michael, you're wondering why vultures eat rotten meat? Well, because that's easy for them. So being a big, large bird, it's difficult to fly and hunt. You can imagine trying to chase down a little sparrow or a small dove that's much faster and more agile. It's really very, very difficult. So when a bird is that size, it's hard to maneuver and hard to catch fast things. So much easier to come down and find a dead animal that the lions have killed that's still got a bit of meat on it that they can then come in and feed off. They don't have to expend too much energy actually getting to that carcass. They're able to just fly down, and they don't have to worry about the big bulk that they have. Also, we need them out here because all these carcasses that we have from the lions and the leopards and hyenas, they need to be cleaned up so that we don't have rotten meat lying around and disease spreading. So the vultures are vitally important to come down and just clean up all of that. So somebody's got to do it, and it makes sense that they're big because then they can try and intimidate other things off the carcass. So I've seen vultures chasing hyenas off, I've seen them chasing leopard off, I've seen them chasing cheetah, as well as even jackals. So they, in numbers, can be quite ferocious and quite overpowering in their ability to take over a carcass. But this one is just enjoying the morning light and having a nice, looks like it's almost having a snooze. Its eye is open, but it's going to groom a little bit as well. Now, we're going to carry on and see if we can maybe find one of the predators that these vultures will often follow around to try and find food. And while we do that, let's go across to my colleague and friend James Henry, who's got something very, very big to show you.
There we go, everybody, 6 years older than those of you sitting at the Christian Alliance School in Hong Kong. My name is James Henry. I am unfortunately older than you and that elephant. I'm not going to tell you how old. Craig, or Batman, is on camera. That's Batman's thumb. And I won't tell you why it's called Batman either. We're going to enjoy this elephant for the next little while. Ask any questions that you'd like to. I will try my level best to answer them. And he's just having his breakfast. Matthew, you ask a very broad question about how elephants are able to communicate. Matthew, they communicate in a variety of ways. The first and most obvious one and most commonly used one, we think, is something called infrasound, which means that they communicate in a frequency too low for the human ear, and they make low rumbles that when we can hear them sound a little bit like this. They go. Now, to them, it won't sound like that. It'll sound very different. I'm not sure how it'll sound, but they have much more sensitive ears for that frequency than ours. So that's what they use, and that can travel up to sort of 5 kilometers, that sound, so they can communicate over vast distances using that. Then they do trumpet, and they roar. They make a kind of screaming, roaring sound sometimes, and if you ever want to know what it sounds like, you have only to watch the movie Jurassic Park. Though those dinosaur noises are elephant noises that are speeded up and slowed down. So that's quite interesting. And then they can trumpet in the traditional sort of... You've often heard, I'm sure, films or seen documentaries with elephants doing that. They don't do it very often, but they can do it. And then they also use something we think called tectonic communication. Now what that means is that they stamp on the ground. And we think that other elephants are then able to pick up the stamping of elephants up to sort of 50 kilometers away. They pick up the vibrations in the earth from these elephants stamping on them. Now, I'm still struggling to believe that, but there is quite a lot of evidence that even if that's not what they are perceiving, they are able to perceive some form of communication through their feet from other elephants. So that's quite interesting stuff. We, I think, are at the beginning of understanding how elephants communicate with each other and how extensive that communication is. Now, there are another 2 bulls around here somewhere, but I don't know where they are. So we're going to stick with this chap here. Oh, did you see that bird, Batman? There's a button quail. Ian, you want to know why their ears flop around? Well, Ian, if you had ears that size, your ears would also flop around. They actually have a very specific reason for flopping around, and that is for heat regulation. An elephant loses most of the heat that it needs to through its ears, and if you look at them ears just flopping around there, it's about 20% of the elephant's surface area is made up by the front and back of the ears. And you can see lots and lots of veins crisscrossing the ears there. And those veins, of course, carry blood from the inside of the elephant. And the blood basically acts as a heat transfer. It goes into the ears flap, the blood cools down, and then when it flows out of the ears again, it helps the rest of the body to stay cool. So it's a really effective radiator. Because heat balance out here is very important. It gets very hot indeed. And Ray, you're wondering how big the elephant's ears are. Well, they're about 1.2 meters by 1.2 meters. Let me just reverse back a bit. So they're enormous, especially on a big bull. He's about maybe a bit older than 20. Let's call him 25. And Ray, that means that they're going to get a lot bigger. I mean, some elephants, most bull elephants will grow until the day that they die. They never stop growing. And so his ears, he's going to get a lot bigger than he is. He probably weighs now, I would say, about 4,500 kilograms. And he's probably got another 1,000 or so to go if he gets big. It's quite a lot, isn't it? I mean, imagine putting on 1,000 kilograms of weight. Vicky, you say what's the size of the largest elephant? Well, actually, I've just been reading about that. The largest elephant ever weighed was estimated to be about 6,500 kilograms, 6,500 or 6.5 tons. And Vicky, it's difficult, obviously, to measure the mass of an elephant. So a lot of the masses or weights that you'll hear about elephants are guesses. They're educated guesses from people because, of course, you can't really say to that thing, well, could you climb on the scale, please? We'd like to know how much you weigh. And he's been tremendously what we call confiding. He's happily eating around us. He's not showing any reaction to our being around him and driving the car and crushing bushes, which is great. Michael, you're wondering how their tusks are used. Well, I wish I could kind of show you, but because it's summertime and he's eating grass, it's a little bit difficult to show you. They use their tusks ostensibly for pulling bark off trees, which they will eat in the winter time when it's the dry season. They use them for defense to a certain extent. They will certainly defend themselves if they have to with their tusks. And then they will use them for fighting. Sometimes they fight with each other, and that will necessitate the use of the tusks. But essentially they're used to help them feed. They break things and they sandwich things between the trunk and the tusks, which help them to break sort of branches or roots or that sort of thing. But an elephant can also survive without tusks. There are plenty of elephants that are born either without them or they lose them. They break them off and they can survive without them. But I think tusks sort of the length that that bull's got are very useful. Now Tristan has got a great variety of the biodiversity that we have here, so let's head straight back across to him.
We do indeed. We've come up onto an area that I was hoping to find lots of different kinds of animals, and we have managed to see lots together. So we've got a beautiful herd of impalas, zebra and wildebeest that are all hanging around together. And the reason why they're all together is because they've been using this open section for the night. So all of them would have come here during the late hours of yesterday afternoon, and they've then stayed here during the night because it's very open, so they can see if there's any sign of predators coming. And the reason why it's so open is, as you can see straight down the middle there is a runway. So this is an airstrip where some of the guests that come to the lodges in this area, they land here and they go to the varying lodges from here. But the animals use it because it's so open and clear. They can see any lion or leopard that's coming and therefore stay nice and safe. And so that's why you've got a mix of them together. Also, you see the grass is very, very short, and both zebra and wildebeest like short grass, and so that's why you're finding them here. Ollie, you want to know how different animals adapt to their environment? Well, it depends on the animal, but each animal is designed for a specific sort of way that they will coexist with others within an environment. And if you have to remove them, so let's say we had to take these zebras from here and put them somewhere else, they will adapt and they will change to try and survive. But there's certain areas that the zebra will just not be able to survive because it needs certain requirements. So it needs lush green grass during the summer months to be able to get conditioned to survive the winter months where the grass dies off and becomes a little bit lean. If you had to take the zebra and put it into a desert, it's really going to suffer and probably not survive. So each animal will adapt according to small changes, but you can't make drastic changes. It's like taking you from Hong Kong and then putting you into the Antarctic with no clothes or anything. You're not going to be able to survive, and it's the same thing with them. So they adapt to small changes. So if we have lots of rainfall, then they'll move into an area where it's not so marshy and it's better conditions for them to be able to move around in. Or if they'll follow rain after a winter where there's a little bit of green grass that may have flourished. So those kind of things they can do, but in terms of actually changing their way that they do things is very, very difficult. Ali, well, camouflage is vitally important for hunting and surviving. Now, if we have a look here, we've got 3 different animals with 3 very different colors and very different patterns, but each one of these is an animal that is hunted a lot by the predators out here, and yet their numbers are still thriving and they're still surviving. And in fact, in the impalas, which are the small little antelope that ran past us, they are hugely successful, as you can see by all of them stretched out there. And you would think with their bright colors that we would be able to see them really, really easily, and that we would be able to and the predators would be able to see them and hunt them. Now, the thing is with them is that they've got an interesting camouflage. It's a little bit different to other animals. You see that they have 3 different sort of colorations. So they have a dark top layer, a lighter middle layer, and a very light tummy. Now, that's to match the horizon. So if we look at the zebras from very, very far and we had to make this picture black and white, the impalas will actually blend in really, really well. So their top layer will blend in with the darkness of the trees, and then the middle layer, top of the grass, and then that very light bottom layer will be the sort of stalks of the grass. And so it's called counter shading, and so that's how they're able to camouflage a little bit. And the same with the zebras, they have that broken stripe pattern, so they're able to then break up their outline, which helps them then to camouflage a little bit. And you'll find with the predators, things like leopard, they have the spotted pattern because they like to spend time in thickets and in areas where there's lots of dense bush, and so that matches the dappled light, whereas lions are more out in the open plains in the light colored grass, and so their light coloration helps for them to blend in. And it's a game between these two animals, the predators and the prey, as to which one can conceal and camouflage themselves better so as that they're not hunted. Now with prey animals, you'll see that most of the time they live in big groups so that they have more eyes and ears, because the predator's camouflage tends to be a lot better. Now, Alan, you're wondering if the zebras always have stripes. Yes, in this area, the zebras always have stripes. In fact, all zebras across the world will always have stripes, but they do have different kinds of stripes. So each zebra has a unique striping pattern. It's not the same on every zebra. It's like your fingerprints. Every person has a different fingerprint. It's the same with the zebra. They have different stripes, and that allows them then to be unique from one another. Now I'm going to turn around and just follow all of these animals down, because it is very, very pretty down there. So let me just quickly turn for you. You can see there's still some impalas that are coming across. There's a lonely wildebeest and there's actually quite a few wildebeest there, a lot more than I thought, and a stallion zebra. So that's probably the sort of the stallion of the herd, so he's going to be looking after this group of zebras and making sure that they're all safe. A zebra male is a very, 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 very strong animal, and they often are very defensive of their females, so they look after their females. And that's only here in South Africa. In South Africa we have it a little bit different to Kenya and Tanzania and Botswana, because there the zebra herds are absolutely massive. You go into those big open grasslands and you'll find thousands and thousands of zebras walking together, and so a male can't keep all those females to himself, and so they tend to have a looser situation where they will just compete for a female that comes into heat, whereas here the male will keep his females because we have a far smaller population of zebras, and he makes sure that his females are looked after and that no other males come and take his females away from him. And you can see there's a little baby that's having a morning drink, so it's having a little suckle. Now, it's quite common to see zebras standing like that, where their heads and tails are opposite, and that's because they're trying to keep the flies away from their face. So they'll stand with one's tail by another one's face, and then as they swing the tail, they keep all the flies that are landing off the ears and eyes and noses. It's then far less irritating. But aren't they beautiful? They've got the most amazing pattern, the zebras. You can see everybody is slowly moving now, and the reason why they're moving is because the sun is coming up and it's starting to get quite hot now, and so they can't stay out in the sun and get baked by the sun all day long. So they're now going to start moving to a more shady section where they can then be a little bit more comfortable during the hot part of the day, and so that's why everybody's moving together down towards the thickets. Also, you'll find that they stay together because they know that more eyes and ears that are together, the less chance that they're going to be able to, a predator's going to be able to sneak in and grab them. Michael, well, you're wondering how the zebra defends itself from predators. So most of the time they'll try not to get into that situation where they have to defend themselves. They're going to try and run away as quick as possible and get out of there and get away from the predator. But there's two interesting things that zebras do. One is that you see those stripes. Those stripes are not there for camouflage. Their primary reason is to confuse a predator. Alright, so you see, look at that now when the baby goes with the two adults there. The stripes all blend in together. Now, a predator, when it's hunting, it will focus on an individual. So let's say we had lions here and they were watching that little baby. As they start chasing, all those zebras come together, and that baby is in amongst there, and the stripes all bouncing around, and the lions then can't see that little baby anymore, and they then hesitate, and then the zebras have enough time to get away. So it's a very clever pattern, and it's made to disrupt the predator's vision, and that's why a group of zebra is called a dazzle of zebra. It's made to dazzle the eyes and confuse you a little bit. And then the other thing is that they are able to kick really, really hard. So they're able to really put in a violent kick in. So if lions come past, they could potentially be kicked and hurt as well. So that's how zebras will defend themselves. Gordon, you're wondering what happened to our poor zebra that was attacked by lions, not last night, the night before. Well, it's still alive. James saw it this morning. So when we go across to James again, he'll be able to give you a better idea of what happened to it. But I believe it's still alive, it's still walking, so it's trying its best to try and recover, but it's going to be a long road for that zebra. It's not going to be easy, and it's going to have a lot of problems going forward, and hopefully it will stay out of the way of other predators and survive. Right, so we're going to carry on admiring these uninjured zebra, and while we do that, let's go back to James. Like I say, maybe he can give you a better update of how the zebra is doing.
I will tell you about the zebra shortly. Let's just have a look at this elephant, and I wanted to show you what he's eating. I picked this up from basically the tracks on which he was walking. This he had in his mouth, and in fact you can see a little bit of elephant spittle over there, shining in the morning sun. Oops. And what he's going for, I think, is largely these seeds. So he's biting off the seed part and leaving the straw bit, because the straw bit is not particularly healthy. There's not much nutrients in it. So that's what's going on there. Let's continue following him. As we follow him, I'll just tell you that the zebra, I don't know how much of it Tristan described, but it's got the skin missing off the stomach. And I think what the lions did, I think she's also got cuts underneath her elbows, and I think that the lions got hold of her. And of course, when a cat gets hold of you like that, they rake. I don't know if you've got house cats at home, but they rake their back legs up and down and rake their claws in. And I wonder if that's not how daisies. I wonder if that's not how that zebra lost most of the skin from the sort of chest down. We've got a very big log here that we're going to try and get around. The elephant is just in front of us. He's not far. There we go. We've got around here. There are lots of holes and stumps and things. This elephant, like I say, is being very kind, allowing us to be around him. Sophia, what a very good question. And you know, it's not something that people often ask, because it's almost taken for granted that that's just how things are. But of course the question is, why are elephants grey? Well, there are a few reasons. I'm just going to talk a little bit more quietly because we're quite close to him now. Elephants are grey, Sophia, largely because you'll find that actually skin in just about every animal out here is grey. If you were to shave a zebra, you'd find grey skin. If you were to shave a kudu or an impala or a wildebeest, you'd find varying shades of grey. You'd very seldom find a pigmented skin like you do in human beings. We have very different coloured skins from just about every other animal in the world. And if you look at a dog's skin, it's almost universally grey. So that's one of the reasons. And they obviously don't have any hair. Well, they do have some hair, but very little. The other reason is that grey is actually an exceptionally clever colour to be out here if you want to stay hidden. Not far more so than green or than camouflage, sort of mottled colouring. Grey, if you are big and you want to disappear into a woodland, is astoundingly clever. So these animals often will become almost completely invisible, quite close by, especially in woodland environments. Not so much in the grass, of course, because in the grass they stand taller than the grass. Oh, he's getting very close now. This is wonderful. Eating his breakfast. Now he's looking at us. This is just brilliant. So that's why grey is a great colour. Ray, you're wondering about what happens to an elephant when it encounters a cold climate. Well, you know, some parts of Africa where elephants live, we do get pretty cold. The Ngorongoro crater, for example, up in East Africa, regularly drops below zero. Doesn't stay at zero. You know, it'll go up to sort of 15 or 16 in the middle of the day, I imagine, in winter time. But it's very high up. They have been found on the slopes of Mount Kilimanjaro and Mount Kenya. And that gets pretty chilly, but not cold like it does at high latitudes. They're not adapted for cold. But we do know of that one fateful expedition that Hannibal of Carthage took with elephants, where he tried to cross the Alps with African elephants. And, you know, I don't actually know enough about the story to know how the elephants coped with the cold. But they clearly have no fur, which means that they will struggle to hold in heat if they need to hold in heat. So I think you'll find that they probably don't do very well in temperatures that go much below zero, and certainly in temperatures that don't then increase during the middle of the day. So the thing with temperature balance with animals, it's got a lot to do with what we call the surface area to body ratio. Now, or surface area to mass ratio. So if you were to take two spheres, you guys I'm sure would all do science class, if you were to take two spheres of the same color, and one was, say, the size of your palm, and the other the size was a soccer ball, if you were to heat them both up to the same temperature, and then let them cool in the same environment, you'd find that the bigger one got colder more slowly than the small one. And that's because the surface area to volume ratio is that much larger, which means that it loses heat much more slowly. So if you compare a mouse to this elephant, for example, you will find that the elephant will lose heat much more slowly than the mouse does. And so for an elephant, heat balance out here is actually not that difficult. It struggles to lose heat, but it's got those great ears to do it. But it also doesn't get that cold. So if it gets cold in the night, during the day, of course, the sun warms up, and it almost stores heat because of its size. So it'll almost store heat that will get it. It'll lose that heat much more slowly during the night. So yes, it'll be cold by the time morning comes up, and it'll have to produce a lot more energy to stay warm. But it's not a huge problem. You put it in the snow, however, where the temperature during the day doesn't get up sort of beyond 5 or 6 degrees, I think you'll find an elephant will really struggle. And it's one of the reasons, of course, that elephants don't have fur. And the bigger the animal is out here, the less fur it has. Alrighty, I think we're going to leave this elephant. He's been so wonderfully kind to us to let us spend so much time with him during the course of this morning. We're going to head away from him and hand you over to Tristan with that great plethora of African diversity that he has.
Indeed, we've got a myriad of legs that are moving through. Isn't it quite amazing? It's quite mesmerizing just to watch all these little legs as they move along. So that's all the impalas moving together. You can see they're in a tight group at the moment, and that's because they're trying to get across this runway, and so they're all tightly bound. With a herd, the best thing is that you've got to remember is that if you are left behind, then you are more vulnerable to predators, so you've got to try and stay with the herd as tight as possible, and you'll find if one impala runs, they'll all run. So they're very, very clever. Now our zebra and our wildebeest have just come off on the side here. They're still sitting in front of us and having a really nice graze on the short grass. And you'll notice that they've come very close to a very large object on our right hand side here, which is looks almost like a big pile of soil. Now that is a termite mound. It's built by the termites, and the reason why the zebras and the wildebeest are here is because that mound there is built with saliva, feces, and particles of soil. So it's basically like the termites are mixing their compost into the soil itself, and so whatever grows there is really, really nutrient rich and very, very tasty. So the zebras and the wildebeest and elephants and impalas, they all take advantage of that, and they eat around the termite mound and make sure that they get the best nutrient rich grass that they can. So, Ollie, you're wondering what the ecosystem is here. I suppose you're referring to the biome that we have. Well, it's a wooded savanna, so mixed wooded savanna is what we're in. And so that is the system that we have. And it's basically a savanna is a grassland area that has rich, nutrient-rich grasses that are good to sustain wildlife, and then we've got these wooded areas in amongst it. So we've got a lot of things like bush willow and terminalia, which are types of trees that grow here. So it's a very, very wooded area. It's not like Kenya and the Masai Mara, which is a very grassland savanna that you see there. So, Alan, you're wondering what the impala do when they are attacked. Well, they flee for their lives. An impala is quite a small animal, so it doesn't actually have too much power. It can't fight off things like lion or leopard. So they've got to rely on their speed and agility to be able to get away from predators. So that's what they rely on. But they'll also rely on the fact that there are so many of them. So when there's lots together like this, it means that a predator's got to be very, very good to get very close to them, because there's lots of ears, lots of noses, lots of eyes that are smelling, sniffing, hearing, and so they can pick up predators quite easily. Also, impalas are very, very skittish when they want to be, so they're always on the lookout for something. You can see how they're looking at us every now and then. I see there's actually two boys that are busy fighting. They're not paying too much attention. They're up at the top there, Dave. There they are. So you can see these two young boys are having a little clash. So that's basically how they get away, is that they are very, very fast and very agile. These impalas run at about 80 kilometers an hour, so can get away quite quickly. Now you see that those two males fighting is not real fighting, it's just play fighting, and it's all to do with training, effectively. They're doing that to try and strengthen the muscles in their neck, and to practice the technique for when they have to fight with one another for territory. So when they get a little bit older, these guys are still a bit young, but when they reach about 3.5 years old, then they're going to start competing for females in the rut. Now the rut is a period of the year when the males try and mate with the females, and that's normally around, for us, April, May. So we're coming into that rut, and the males then have to train, and they have to practice, and they have to knock horns with one another in order to strengthen those necks up and to be able to be strong enough to dominate. Matthew, you're wondering about how animals mark their place. Well, we call it out here scent marking, and so it depends. There's different ways for different species, but generally it's by using their urine or their dung. So they'll either drop urine in certain places. So like if you had a leopard or a lion, they often will go to the edge of a road and then they scrape their feet and open the soil up and then urinate in that soil to be able to deposit this urine there, and then the urine also goes onto their feet, and wherever they walk they're taking it with them. You'll find that things like rhino, they tend to defecate in one place, so they'll drop their dung in a big area called a midden, and so that's a sort of territorial sign for other rhinos that there is a territorial male in that area. And then there's varying other ways. You'll find with impalas, they'll also have a little midden in the mating season that they mark on. They also have a gland on their face, like the wildebeest do as well, that they'll rub on bushes, and so any other animal that walks past picks that up and is able to smell. So there's lots of different ways, but most of it is through chemicals, which is either through the urine or the dung or a gland on their face that they'll be able to mark their territories. Sean, the animals, some of them spend a lot of time in certain areas, but they don't stay in the same place every day because of the movement of other animals. So let's say if we had lions that came here and then they lay here for 2 days, or they killed a wildebeest and they lay here for 2 days, this wildebeest herd is not going to stay here. They're going to go far away from the lions because they know the lions are a threat. So they move around according to the other animals that are around here. They also move around according to environmental changes. So let's say it starts to get very hot here and dry, but there's rain 100 kilometers away. The wildebeest in particular will start moving towards that rain because they know that there's going to be fresh green grass that's going to grow there that's going to be better tasting. So it depends on those kind of factors. But what you will find is that at the moment, if no predators come here, these impalas, zebra, wildebeest that we've seen now will keep coming here every single night because they know that this is a place of safety at the moment. It's nice and open, they can see what's going on, and so they prefer to come here for now. As soon as they spot a predator here, then you'll find they'll shift to another open section where they'll spend time. And also over time, as we get into winter and the grass starts to die, they're going to eat all the nutrients that is available here, and so then they have to move somewhere else to be able to find the nutrients they need to survive. So Bernice, that they can find food, and if there isn't, it means that we have an extreme drought, which is what we had last year. And that extreme drought means that it's basically coming about and it's helping to curb the numbers of certain animals. So things like wildebeest, zebra, buffalo, their numbers tend to get really, really large in times of very wet years. So when we have lots and lots of rain, there's lots of grass, which means that they get lots of food. There's also a place to hide their babies, and so their numbers tend to grow. Then you'll get drought years, which means that it's really tough on these herbivores, and their numbers just decline a little bit. So it's nature's way of just keeping a balanced ecosystem and making sure that we don't get too many of one animal, that it disturbs the environment and therefore causes a collapse in the area, and other animals then suffer from that. So you can see that they're slowly grazing towards it. It's amazing if we spend a lot of time with them, how they actually get accustomed to us, and you can see they're not disturbed by us at all. So Peter, you asking about adaptations that some of the animals have out here that may be different from the animals in Hong Kong or other parts of the world. Well, Peter, it depends on the environment. So most of the animals that occur in different parts of the world are very specifically designed for their environment. So let's take the predators, for example. This is going to be probably the easiest way, is you'll find cheetah are very well adapted to be able to run very fast. So their environment means that they need to be in areas where they've got open grassland or open plains. There's not too many trees, that they're allowed to get to that top speed and be able to turn there. Here in this area where we get lots of trees, it's quite difficult for the cheetah to get up to that top speed, and so they don't really do that well. Then if you take a leopard needs thick, dense foliage, so they have somewhere to hide. So you'll find that leopards are normally in areas where there's lots and lots of cover that they can hide in. Lions tend to be more in open grassland because the color of their coat means that they can survive better there. Then if you take tigers occur only in the jungles. We don't get any tigers here in Africa, but in India and parts of Russia there's jungles where these tigers go in, and that stripes with the orange and the black help for them to camouflage in those jungles. And then you've got varying other cats that are all different shapes and colors that will all blend into the different environments that they're in. So it just depends where they are and how many trees and grasses that you have. That will depend on the adaptations that they have. Then you've got other animals that are very good at being able to store water. So things like camels that survive in deserts, they've got an ability to store water and fat in their humps that they're able to then survive for long periods without finding that. So it just depends on the environment, and that's what dictates the adaptations that they may have. Well, Brighton, this is an interesting one, because I think this one will be debated, but you're asking if animals do anything just for fun. Well, I think so. I've watched animals run around. Just hold on, I'm just listening to the wildebeest. Can you hear him? He's stopped now, but he was making a very deep sound, and he was going, So that's when they see something that they're not sure of. So I think there's an impala that's coming over the ridge, and it just saw the back of it, and maybe it thought that there was a predator coming, and that's why it was shouting. There you go, you can see the impalas right in the distance there, and that's why that wildebeest got a bit of a fright. But yes, I do think they have fun. I have seen babies, definitely. Babies run around and play and chase each other, and they roll around if they're cubs. So there's lots and lots of play that happens in younger animals. And then sometimes you see with elephants, they'll go into water and they roll around in the water and they splash water everywhere. And it's not really the function is to cool down, but after 1 minute of being in the water, they cooled. But yet they'll stay for 20 minutes throwing water around and splashing and playing. So yes, I think animals do things for fun, just to entertain themselves from time to time. But it's not maybe in the same way that we do it, or we would describe it. We would have things that we do just because we want to entertain ourselves, whereas animals, they just do it because they enjoy it. So they'll, like I say, roll around in mud or roll around in water or chase one another just because it's an interesting thing for them to do. It's also vitally important, particularly in the young ones, when they are running after each other. It's building stamina and building fitness, so if a predator does chase them, then they're able to run away, and if it is a predator, that they're strong enough to be able to chase that animal and then be able to bring that animal down. So even though it is games and it seems like they're having fun, it is important to what they're doing, and it's like us going to gym and training. It's the same kind of thing for them. This is how they do it. Brighton, I have seen herbivores attack carnivores. It's quite something to watch. So I've seen, in fact, we were talking about it last night. I was telling Taylor, who's one of our other presenters, how I watched wild dogs try and hunt wildebeest, and the wild dogs were trying to go after the little baby wildebeest, and they kept going and going, and then the big male wildebeest arrived, and he chased these wild dogs, and he eventually hit one of the wild dogs, and he knocked it to the ground, and then he stabbed it with his horn and threw this wild dog into the air. So I've seen that. I've seen lions attacked by a buffalo, and in fact killed by a buffalo. So the lion grabbed the buffalo, and the buffalo hit with its horn, and the horn went into the lion's stomach and killed it. So there's lots of times that I have seen herbivores chasing carnivores. It does happen, and it's normally when there is a big herd and the numbers are more than that of the carnivore, and they can able to then try and chase that carnivore away. And also if the herbivore is bigger than the carnivore. So in the case of the wild dog and the wildebeest is much bigger and more powerful than the wild dog, and in the case of the lions and the buffalo is more powerful than just one lion on its own. But all is very, very peaceful this morning, and it's so nice to see the wildebeest and the zebra mixing and matching there. It's kind of that very African scene, which is one of those animals that people always think of as being together. And funny enough, in this part of the world, we actually don't see them together that often. It's only in areas like this that you'll see them together, but even then, it's not the most common sighting for us. In Kenya, though, which is where we are going in the middle of the year, it's quite common to see. So Tanya, as we were just discussing, no, they don't stay together all the time. You'll find the zebras will move off, the wildebeest will move off, they'll spend a lot of time in different areas. So they don't spend all their time together at all. It's not like they become friends and then they stay together. They're actually just utilizing one another for safety, but also because where they are is the environment that they like to be in. They like to be in open areas with short grass, and so because they're the same kind of animal and they like the same kind of places, they've come together, and because they're both herbivores, they don't mind each other's company and they allow each other to be quite close. Gordon, you're wondering where the lions and leopards are. Well, I'm wondering the exact same thing. We've had a tough 2 days of trying to find lions and leopards, lots and lots of tracks of them. Well, particularly the lions, not so much the leopards. But the lions have been a little bit elusive. They've been moving around in this area. We've found footprints everywhere. In fact, this morning I was following tracks for a male lion, and they unfortunately went south out of our area and deeper into the rest of the park. So they are around. The last leopard we saw was not last night, it was the night before. We saw a beautiful big male. And the leopards that we mostly see is a female with 2 cubs, and unfortunately they've been spending a lot more time a little bit further south of us on another area, and so they've been spending time down there, and we haven't seen too much of them recently, but normally she's around our area most days. So there are a few of the lions and leopards around, and there's signs of them, we just haven't been able to find them. It's also quite difficult at this time of the year because of the summer that we've had and lots of rain. The grass is very, very long, and it's really quite tough to find them in that long grass. They just disappear when they go in there. Right, guys, well, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I really have enjoyed having you with us, and I hope you enjoyed your morning safari, and hopefully you'll be back and we'll be able to find those lions and leopards for you. But from myself and Dave, goodbye, and thank you very much for joining us. And for everybody else, we're going to go back to James and see what he's up to.
Hello everybody, we're back again, and I was going to say something of vital importance. Oh yes, we've left that elephant. We spent a good hour and 15 minutes with him, and it was just very special because he paid no heed to us whatsoever. And I mean, we drove around him, sideways, frontwards, backwards, towards him, away from him, and he just didn't pay any attention. Very special to have an experience like that. And yes, sometimes it's nice when they interact a little bit and they come closer and have a look. But that's really, I mean, what we're going for with any kind of safari experience is that, where the animal just gets on with his life and pays no attention because he feels so comfortable with you that he just doesn't feel the need to react, which is wonderful. So that was great. I had a feeling about Buffelshoek Dam, call it what you will. I'm going back towards it now because there have been lots and lots of tracks and reports of wild dogs running up and down on Torchwood. Nobody's found them yet, and they do often end up at waterholes. So let's just go and have a look, see if they haven't fetched up there after their hunt this morning. That's the plan from here. And then I'm going to head back down to the southern boundary and do one last foray and see if Karula hasn't come across. But I don't know if that's going to happen. Jay, there's a wonderful example of this, and yes, they can. You say, can different species of animals speak to each other? I'm not sure in the way that you mean, but they certainly can understand each other, and the best example of that is something like an alarm call. When something like a Impala alarm calls, which is a snort that it makes when it sees a predator, other animals that are not Impala will immediately respond and look and try and see what's going on. If monkeys start alarm calling in a tree, then all the other animals will look up and see, well, what are they alarm calling at? So they recognize each other's signs of distress and alarm. They recognize distress. So there are examples, not very nice examples, but examples of zebra killing wildebeest calves that can't find their mothers because they're bellowing and making a sound that we think would attract predators, and so zebra will run in and stop the noise in order to stop them attracting predators, we think. So they understand that distress call. Animals definitely under stress understand when a buffalo is making a distress call, for example. Hyenas and lions will come running from miles away to see what's going on. So they do. I'm not sure if that's kind of what you meant, but that's the kind of stuff that I take it as. You know, animals do understand each other's sounds. They understand distress, especially because it helps with their own self-preservation. Can an impala understand an elephant's low rumbles and what they mean to each other? No, I think probably largely not. Can a crested francolin speak to a monotonous lark? No, I don't believe that it can. Do animals communicate with body language to each other interspecifically? So between species? Yeah, I think they probably do. You can definitely read body language. This francolin is the stupidest francolin in the world. There's one, you can just see him running along the road there, and he won't get off the road. Come on. I heard a story, fairly nasty story, about a francolin doing this sort of thing once. I'm just going to stop and let him see if he can't find his way off the road. It was a Swainson's francolin, I think. Craig, let's just have a look at the francolin. And at a reserve that shall remain nameless, but is not too far from here, there was a francolin running along the road, and the guest said to the ranger, you know, aren't you scared you're going to run it over? So the ranger said, no, it will definitely move if I get too close. He said, watch. And he put his foot down, with which there was a satisfying pop. and a puff of feathers, and the Swainson's Franklin was no more. We will try avoid the same situation occurring with us. Still on the road. Now, you might ask yourself, why is it running along the road? It can fly, and if I got close enough it would fly. I'll just run off there. It's simply because it cannot see. The grass is so long that it's much easier to run along the road than it is to charge into bush through which it cannot see. Why it wouldn't choose to fly, though, I'm not really sure. Right, let's see if we can't find some wild doggies at the Buffelshoek Dam. It's purely a guess that they might be there. I'm just listening to the radio because I don't think they've found them yet. No, they haven't. They did find quarantine on Torchwood today, so that's where most of the action has taken place. The Nkuhuma pride of 3 lionesses and 6 cubs has not been found again on Torchwood, and Aubrey thought they might come across this way today. So, I don't know if that's going to happen or not. Might actually be worth, rather than flogging the dead horse that has been the southern boundary for the last while, maybe we'll do the northern boundary again and see if the lions haven't come back this way. In fact, that's definitely what we'll do. Right. We're about a minute away from Buffelshoek Dam. We'll just quickly have a look there, and then we'll go and see what Tristan's managed to find himself. Ooh. Unless, of course, there are wild dogs chasing animals around at Buffelshoek Dam, in which case we'll stay there. Here we go. I can see the banks of the dam. I don't see any dogs on the banks. No leopard, no lion. Oh, come on, don't let me down. Dost thou let me down so? Now, Danny, you're in Chicago with a very clever question, while we sit here and find that there is, as usual, absolutely nothing. Danny, you want to know if wild dogs would attack that injured zebra. They might, you know. They are not known for taking zebra in this area. They do in some other parts of Africa, not so much here. So, yeah, I think it's well possible because it's injured. There are no zebra here, though. We can just have a quick look at those weavers' nests there, Craig, at the other end. And those are female. Oh, that's interesting. They're female village weavers and a couple of red-billed Queleas. So if you go to the left there, Craig, those are the weavers, those are the female village weavers. Those little birds there, those are red-billed Queleas. And those birds cause devastation in various parts of Zimbabwe specifically, because they're the most numerous bird in the world, actually, and they form swarms, because they're too big to call flocks. Swarms of birds, sort of 100 million strong, I've heard, and they will devastate croplands. Hello, Aolani and Amani. I'm not sure if you're 1 or 2 people, or perhaps even more than that. You say, do we have any birds here that mimic the calls of others? Yes, we do. We have 3 or 4 species. The most obvious ones would be the Sabota lark, which is a very good mimic. It's slightly sort of high-pitched for most of the other birds that it mimics, but it does do a very good sort of tonal representation. The fork-tailed drongo makes valiant attempts, very poor mimic. And then we get a few robin species out here that are really good mimics of other birds. And then you get sort of variations in between, some that try a little bit, but don't do a very good job. The best mimic, I think, right here is the Sabota lark. This is wonderful sighting of those birds, you know. I'm not sure why they're all knocking about on the nests there. And then a question from Waterbuck Rogers. Waterbuck Rogers, you want to know about herons and if we get native heron species here? Yes, we get quite a few. The heron species we get here include the grey heron. We saw black-headed heron the other day, which is not common around here. The green-backed heron, Goliath heron every so often, egret species, which of course are herons, so quite a few. That's a really nice shot there of those birds playing around in the village weaver's nest. I did see one male village weaver, and of course there could be more than one male, but they're all now, oh, there the Queleas flying, well done. Imagine a flock of those things, sort of 100 million strong. What I want to say about the male weavers is that they are now going to start losing their male plumage. They've got black faces at the moment, very bright yellow plumage, but that's all going to go now because the breeding season is over as we head into autumn. And always at this time of the year I think to myself, you know, how on earth could we possibly be already at the end of the summer? But I guess as you get older, so that is a feeling that you feel much more often. Okay, let's move on from Buffels Hook Dam. And Tristan is somewhere around the place. I'm not sure. He was on an airstrip earlier. I don't know if it was Chitwa or on Arathusa. He will tell you, and he will tell you what he's going to do for the remaining part of the strive.
Well, James, I'm clutching at massive straws here and looking for any signs of shadow and cub. I'm in the Murray drainage, having a check around, seeing if there's any sign for her, seeing if her tracks come anywhere here, looking for any signs still of those lions that maybe were at Arathusa Dam that seems to have just magically vanished and grown wings and flown because no one can find a footprint for them anywhere, apparently. So, that is the plan. We are just checking, and we're going to slowly check all the little pans as we go. So we'll check Red Dam, we'll check Knobthorn Pan, and just see if there's any sign of anything else as well. I think that's the best plan to carry on and end the morning. Buttons Cockatoo, you're wondering if anyone measures the depth of the dams here. No, not that I know of. I don't think anybody does actually accurately measure them. I know Chitwa, when there was first built that dam wall, they did measure how deep it would be at capacity, but I can't remember what the figure was. I think it was like 25 or 26 meters deep if it was full. The rest of them, no, nobody's actually measuring the depth of them. So yeah, there's no actual figures on them. Maybe if you actually had to ask the people that built them, so if we had to ask Hannes about Arathusa Dam or Yuri about Gowrie Dam or Twin Dams, he might know, but I certainly don't, and I certainly haven't seen any figures on it to suggest that they do it regularly. So there's no sort of indication of the percentages of how full these dams are. But I can tell you one thing, we're going to get to Red Dam now and you'll see how full Red Dam is. I remember last year at one stage Red Dam was a mud wallow, not even a puddle in it. It was just mud. And when you see it now, you'll be quite shocked as to see how full it is. So the thing is with Red Dam though is it is supplemented by a pump. So it's got pump-fed water. So that's also contributed to its very full nature because they pumped it prior to the rain, and then the rains came and it just kind of doubled the volume. So you can actually see there's the pump house there. That's where the pump is housed, and it's in that little concrete structure like that, a brick structure, so that the hyenas and varying other naughty animals that we get out here do not eat cables and varying parts of the pump, which does happen. Right, so come on Shadow, where are you? So she's used this little section here before. You can see the pipe sticking out underneath the road. So she's used that before as a den site. But like I say, I think she's staying clear of these pipes at the moment because of the rain that we've had. So, you know, we've had this rain and these little drainage lines have flash flooded. And so for her, she's probably a bit wary of that. And that's why she's not using those pipes like she normally does. She'll probably be using now termite mounds in quite raised areas, or sort of banks of riverbeds that are quite high up. Now, we are just getting to Red Dam now. Let's see if there's anything here. Oh, look at all the swallows. That's quite cool. But you can see, look at how deep Red Dam is at the moment, or full it is. But look at all the swallows on the other bank there. They look like barn swallows. I just want to make 100% sure. And what they will be doing, it looks like they're actually collecting mud off the bank there. So maybe it's buildings. Very less in the swallows to build nests. Interesting. They are coming down to do a bit of drinking as well. I see them kind of swooping down and taking little mouthfuls of water every now and then. So maybe they just like to be vertical when they're sitting down. But they are indeed barn swallows. It's a frenzied activity going on there. That's very, very cool. I haven't seen this many barn swallows for a long time. The only other place I've seen barn swallows is on the wings of the aircraft. So Dave and I just now, when we were at the airstrip, the one aircraft is covered in these barn swallows. So I'm sure the pilot is going to be thrilled to see what his plane looks like with all the droppings that have been sprayed all over the place. There's also, you can hear a lot of chattering going on now. That's all the weavers that are calling in the top right of the screen there. They're busy building at their nests. So there's some red-billed buffalo weavers there, which are the big nests that are on the left-hand side, and then the smaller nests coming off should be for village weavers. Difficult, there's none of them that I can actually see, and those nests look a bit dilapidated, so most of the noise is from the red-billed buffalo weavers. And then in the distance, we also have some Wahlberg's eagles that are perched. Oh, very nice, hey Dave? All the birds here at once. Spotted. So no mammals, but there are some birds around. There are our two Wahlberg's eagles sitting in the beautiful morning light. You can see they've got those long, long rectangular tails and the little crest on the back as well. Very busy morning at Red Dam. Like I say, not so much on a mammal front, but birds are everywhere. Ah, Adam, we do have woodpeckers in the Kruger area. There are 4 that we see here. So we see a cardinal woodpecker, bearded woodpecker, Bennett's woodpecker, and golden-tailed woodpecker here in this particular part of the park. So I shall try and look out for one for the remainder of the drive and see if I can find them. They actually are quite common, particularly the cardinal and the bearded. We see them fairly regularly, and even the golden-tailed, in fact, I hear them quite often, and you can find them. The best way to often locate a woodpecker is just to listen for either its drumming or its tapping, particularly the bearded woodpecker, which is our largest woodpecker. When it drums, it's a very hard, loud sound that is produced, and then the golden-tailed woodpecker and the cardinals have quite distinct calls that when you hear them, then you can go and look at them by locating them through their calls. So I shall try and look out for them and see if we can find anything. Right, well, thank you, swallows. Enjoy your morning. They've all just come off the bank. It almost looked like bats emerging from a cave as I started the car, so I think I gave them all a little bit of a fright. I'm sure they'll settle down. Right, so we're going to carry on checking around, seeing if there's any sign of anything. Might go back towards Treehouse Dam and just see, with the now that it's quite warm, if anything's made an appearance there. And while we do that, let's go across to James and see how his little bumble in the bush is going from Buffelshoek Dam.
Well, as he heads towards Treehouse Dam, we are heading towards Sydney's Dam, where maybe those lions have pitched up. But otherwise, we're just enjoying the wonder of the early autumnal morning here in the northeast corner of South Africa. Couple of butterflies flitting about. Oh, and I was talking about the breeding season, then I just checked up. The weavers are obviously finished breeding because they are, excuse me, they are summer breeders. But we saw a laughing dove flying over the top of us, carrying a stick, which is obviously for nesting material. There's a nice roller sighting we can have. Lovely sound of the brakes there, we'll have to burn those out. And, oh, just see if you can follow it, Craig. It's flying there. I think it's going to do its display. You on it there? Sorry. It's gone. Oh, how our luck. Oh, you've got him still. Well done. Just keep following him. By the time he's a pixel, he'll do his display. And what I was just saying about the laughing dove is that they breed all year round. Interestingly, he is now doing his display. I can see him. He will be 1 pixel big. Fantastic stuff. Alrighty, let's keep going along here. So the laughing dove will breed all year round, so they haven't finished their breeding display or their breeding behavior like the weavers have. And a bit like I was saying with the swallows the other day, this time of the year when the swallows are massing and the weavers are kind of leaving their nests to turn from that lovely green colour to the sort of dark thatch colour. It's a melancholy feeling of the end of summer. But of course in the Lowveld one looks forward to winter because the weather is just gorgeous. A question from somebody, it sounds like, called Fork and Noodles. Was that correct? Fork and Noodles? Ah, well, Fork and Noodles, fascinating name you have. You want to know how it is that so many weavers can congregate in one place. Well, they congregate in one place because I just don't know if you're referring to the Queleas, which are not weavers, or the weavers. So there were 2 species of birds that we were looking at earlier. There were the Queleas, which were the little ones with the red beaks, and they fly around like almost like sort of bird-like locusts, if you like. But the weavers congregate together because their nesting sites are limited, so those particular weavers like to nest in trees that overhang water, so that's what they were doing there. And they form communities because it's probably good for breeding, it's good for finding mates. If they are in a communal breeding area, they compete with each other for females. The males do through their house building skills. I think there's a certain amount of security provided by being in a community like that. They can mob and attack any predators that might come and try and eat them or climb into their nests in the case of snakes and eat out the chicks. So that's why they do it. How they do it? Well, as long as there's enough food for them to eat, then, that's the limiting factor as to how many weavers there can ever be in one area. I hope that answers your question, Fork and Noodles. We're not too far from Sydney's dam now, but I've seen no tracks of any lions going across here. Tristan has an interesting bird for you.
So we do have an interesting bird. I'm actually busy trying to see what it is. It's a pipit of some sort, but I'm just trying to get the exact pipit that it is. Now I'm going to just check my app quickly, but it looks to me like a bushveld pipit, but I just want to make 100% sure. Let's just check on my app quickly. So maybe not. The bushveld pipit is quite streaked and this one isn't. So let's have a look now what else it could be. Maybe a buffy pipit. I suppose it does have some streaking there, doesn't it, Dave? I'm battling to see on the monitor. Now, bushveld pipit is what it looks like to me. That was my first guess. So I think that is what it is. The bushveld pipit does have very light streaking, and then that little light eye stripe over the eye, and those pink legs. So there we go. That's the one that we're looking for. Maybe I'll play its call and let's see if it responds to me. But there we go. That's the bushveld pipit. So you can see the streaks on the breast are quite diffuse, as it says, and a very short tail, which is what this pipit's got, and those pink legs. Now let's play its call and see if it responds. No, not interested in our call. Apparently we're not very bushveld pipity. Maybe my app is not the right tone for this particular one, but we shall carry on then. And after we've been shunned by this pipit, I wonder if it'll stay if we get a bit closer, Dave. What do you think? Maybe. Let's see. That's quite close now. Now I can actually see it really nicely with my binoculars. No, it's got no streaking, Dave. It's just the feathers the way they were. So it's not a bushveld pipit. No wonder it didn't respond to us. Skip, you are 11 years old and you want to know why birds would mimic other birds and why that would be necessary. Well, Skip, the thing is with a bird is that a lot of the ones that mimic often mimic other predators. So let's take fork-tailed drongo, for example. The fork-tailed drongo will mimic a pearl-spotted owlet. So sometimes when they're in an area and there's a hatch of insects and there's all birds that are competing with this drongo, it then starts to make the sound of this pearl-spotted owlet, and it can then, all the other birds hear that and they panic and they go and hide away, and it leaves all those insects for the fork-tailed drongo to then come down and feed. They also mimic mongoose and meerkats as well, so the alarm call for both of those. So if they see that the mongoose has got a little insect and it's busy feeding, then they make the mongoose alarm call. The mongoose drops that food and runs for safety, and the bird then comes down and grabs it. So that's the real reason that they mimic, is more just to try and create a diversion to try and get the food source that that bird may be particularly feeding off. So it's a very clever tactic. Now our pipit has flown away, but I'm sure some of you got screenshots. I want to just try and ID it a little bit better. Alfred, you're wondering if we have parrots, and aren't they known for mimicking? Well, yes, parrots like African greys will mimic, but here in South Africa, or here in this particular part of South Africa, we only have the brown-headed parrots, so they don't mimic. They have their own little sound, and it sounds very parrot-like, and it's probably because they don't need to mimic. They find more than enough food on their own call. Parrots that are taught to mimic and end up mimicking people speaking are generally because people provide the food, and so they don't get the food until they mimic the person, and it's then trained behavior. Whereas these parrots here are finding the food that they need without having to do that to any birds, and that's why they don't mimic. But they're the only parrot we see in this particular part of the park. We do get other parrots in South Africa, so we get the Cape parrot,